Well, hello, everyone. It's absolutely wonderful to have you here. This is Inspiring Voice, or iVoice Communication. We're a company dedicated to creating healthy human connections through high-level effective communication in business. And my name is Donna Rustigian Mac, the founder and the president. And today, clearly with me today, it's a very special day because I have Deborah Grayson Riegel on board with us today. It is so nice to have you here, Deb.
I am thrilled to be here with you today. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so I'm gonna read the official introduction. Here you go.
Okay.
You ready? All right.
hmm
Soak this in. Just enjoy this. Deborah Grayson Riegel is a keynote speaker, an executive coach, and consultant who's taught leadership communication for many incredible places, including Wharton Business School, Duke Corporate Education, Columbia Business School's Women in Leadership program, and the Beijing International MBA program at Peking University. Imagine that. She writes for many great publications, including Harvard Business Review, Inc., Psychology Today, Forbes, and Fast Company, and she's been featured in Bloomberg Business Week, the iVoice Communication YouTube channel, had to slip that one in, the Wall Street Journal, and the New York Times. And we're here, we're really celebrating today because Deb's been an author for a while, and she is out with a brand new book, and it's called Go to Help: 31 Ways to Offer, Ask for, and Accept Help, which I believe we all know is
Yes.
not
And
easy work.
thank you for enunciating that P, because otherwise the book has a very rude title if you don't pronounce the P at the end of help. So thank you for that.
Oh yes, I try to enunciate as best as I can.
I have a feeling that's one of your areas of expertise.
So welcome. It's great to be here with you. And I'll tell you, number one on Amazon.
Number one in organizational change on Amazon. Yes. And number one in a few new release categories: workplace behavior, business decision making, and business mentoring and coaching. Yeah, I was absolutely blown away and surprised and delighted.
Soak that one in too, right? Just
I've
enjoy
taken it
it.
in.
And talk about timely. A couple of years into the pandemic now, I think the whole world feels it. They might not be ready to ask for it yet, but I think the majority of the world absolutely feels that, they need help. They need help
Yeah.
personally, professionally, with their children or parents, if that's part of their world, and, interpersonally and in business and in life. So, really, talk about perfect timing, Deb.
Yeah, and first of all, I need a moment to just absorb your casual introduction of this sentence. A couple of years into the pandemic, and I went, I never ever anticipated that we would be saying a couple of years into the pandemic, and that really struck me
Well, I
that
have to
we are
tell
a
you,
couple of years into it.
when I first went home, right? Everybody remembers the last day. Bye, I'm
Yeah,
going home. I remember saying, we don't know if it's going to be a couple of weeks, a couple of months, or a couple of years. And truly, when I said a couple of years, I did not believe it. I
that's
thought
quite
it
prescient
might be
and
a couple of
scary.
months. I had
Yeah.
no, I really didn't believe it.
Yeah, yeah. So, yes, it's hard to believe it as well. And I think that not despite, well, despite and perhaps because of what all of us have experienced, as you put it, over the last 2 years, I think all of us have realized that there isn't anything we can and should be doing all by ourselves. And in fact, the feeling of all by ourselves is one of the leading causes of depression and anxiety
Mhm.
during the pandemic. And so, offering help and asking for help and then accepting the help that you've been offered is one of the best ways that we can decrease the isolation
Mhm.
associated with COVID and give ourselves some new opportunities to grow and expand and take some of the load off our plates and take some of the load off other people's plates, whether we're talking about in a work environment, a community environment, a home environment.
Thank you so much for saying that because I know people who live alone, work alone, and they've braved the wilderness, so to speak, and they've gone out to volunteer their time to work in soup kitchens just to connect, right, with
Yes.
people, because they know that that's how they maintain their emotional well-being and their mental health, as you mentioned. So very important.
Agreed.
Hmm.
Agreed. Right.
Yeah.
And we have that natural instinct. Most of us, many of us have that natural instinct to want to connect, which is
Hmm.
why the pandemic has been so hard. And we also have a natural instinct, it's a pro-social instinct to want to be of help, right? That's how we are wired. That's how we've survived as a species for as long as we have, is this pro-social instinct. And the pandemic made us have to work extra hard to let our pro-social instinct come to life.
So I would say that's one of the benefits. That's a question
Yeah.
that friends of mine and colleagues of mine pose often. What are some of the benefits of this pandemic? And I think you view it that way as well.
I do. I mean, look, I think one of the benefits is the fact that I'm in sweatpants and socks right now. I'm not in heels, not a spank to be seen anywhere. So those are certainly some of the benefits. Every day is take my dog to work day, some of the benefits. And I think an awful lot of people did an awful lot of taking stock, part of which has certainly contributed to the great resignation, and which is hopefully the great reimagining and the great reframing. And if you were willing to look for the upsides,
Hmm.
you probably found them. And I think one of the most important ways in which we can help other people is by not making people look for upsides before they're ready. That's probably one of
Hmm.
my favorite helping strategies, is not forcing somebody to see a positive perspective before they're ready. And I think we've all got to practice that over the last 2 years.
Now I'm going to let that one soak in because that
Mm.
means a lot to me as well. I see it
Hmm.
all the time. Oh, look at the bright side of life, right?
Yeah.
But we all know it's okay not to be okay.
It is
And
okay not to be okay.
yeah.
And it is an act of love, compassion, trust, and respect to let somebody experience negative emotions without you trying to clean them up because you are uncomfortable that they are uncomfortable.
Mm, amen.
Amen.
That's a beautiful thing. It's reminding me of the mindfulness teacher, world
Mm, mm,
renowned Thich Nhat Hanh, who originated in
mm.
Vietnam, who just went back, by the way, after about 50 years of exile. It's an amazing story. And he said something like, when you really love someone and you know that they're spiraling, you know that they're really struggling with something, the best thing you can say, and I'm paraphrasing, is something like, darling, I am here for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm just
I,
here for you.
I'm here for you. I believe you.
Mm.
Right. I think I believe you is really powerful. Uh, I'm here for you. I believe you. I'm ready if and when you are. All of those things that are about being with them in the present rather than trying to push them towards a future they may not be ready to see or hold yet.
Mhm.
So thank you for sharing those words with me. I completely agree. I wish I had come up with them myself, but I'll take them.
You can borrow them. I'm sure
I'll
he'll be
borrow
very
them.
happy. So, mental health, emotional well being, and
Yeah.
leadership communication, it all kind of works hand in hand, doesn't it, Deb?
It sure does. And
Hmm.
again, that's one of the upsides of the last couple of years, is that talking about mental health and mental well-being went from something that many leaders thought, what does this have to do with work, right? That's an at-home problem. That's a your outside life problem, to something that became the top of every organization's list to talk about. And what's interesting from the perspective of an author and a speaker and a coach on this topic is my daughter Sophie and I. So my daughter Sophie is the co-author of Go to Help with Me. She's a junior at Duke University,
And she's
and
awesome.
and she's awesome.
Hmm.
And about 5 months before the pandemic, we co-wrote our first book together called Overcoming Overthinking: 36 Ways to Tame Anxiety for Work, School, and Life. And little did we know that it was a message meeting its moment. Not that I would ever wish a global pandemic for marketing purposes. However, it became a very important, timely, pressing topic to talk about, helping people navigate anxiety. And this new book that we co-wrote together, Go to Help, is really a part of the old book, which of course still exists. Forgive me, my publisher, the evergreen book, Overcoming Overthinking. That one of the things that was so fascinating to our readers and to our workshop participants was the idea of there is more than one way to offer help, and there's more than one kind of help you could be asking for. And so if we can become what we call in our book help fluent, speaking a very wide range of helping strategies, we can offer much more help to people based rather than our typical go to help strategy, which is let me just do it for you, or let me tell you what to do.
Ah,
There's so many more ways to help. And
mhm,
there are so many more ways to be helped if you know what you're asking for. So if I
mhm.
were to say to you, I could really use a little help, your mind would be scrambling to figure out what that means, and probably left to your own devices, you would go to the one thing that you have been most rewarded for, which could be, giving people resources or telling them what to do or sharing your own experience, regardless of whether or not that's what I need. And so that's what we're trying to
Mhm.
help professionals, parents, and partners get better at.
And being coaches, both of us, and leadership communication people, we realize that the best way for people to really make lasting change is to find their own answers.
Yes.
We might have this huge toolkit that's, years and years of education and experience, but when they're able to find their own answers, that's when they can really make them their own and become what I call
Absolutely.
sovereign, right?
Mm.
Rulers of their own destiny and leaders of their own lives.
For sure. And in the book we actually talk about some of the costs that come with you being too directive, to telling people what to do, how to do it, showing them your way, that you may get compliance. You are not likely to get an awful lot of commitment because it's your idea, not their idea. And you'll probably get complacency as well. So
Right.
if you're looking for compliance and complacency, go ahead, be really prescriptive.
Mhm.
But if you're looking for somebody to come up with a plan that they want to commit to themselves, then maybe
Autonomous,
help.
right.
Yep, maybe take a step back.
Mm. Okay, so offering help. We know
Yes.
so much of what doesn't work. What do you recommend?
Yeah. So I recommend a few things. So first of all, recommend that you have a way, right? You have a way. I have a way
Mhm.
that has been well worn in terms of offering help. So maybe it's brainstorming, playing devil's advocate, and any of these things. And it's well worn because you've been rewarded for it. You've gotten jobs because of it, promoted for it. People talk about you favorably because you're so good at helping in this way, which makes it very tempting for us not to learn any other ways. So, my first piece of advice is to recognize that there are more ways of helping than what you are currently doing. And I
Mhm.
could certainly, recommend 31 strategies. And to know that when we offer help, we want to recognize what we can and can't do in terms of helping. So, for example, if my son is driving his car to school one day and he calls me and is panicked about being there late because the car broke down, I am very helpful as an empathetic ear. I know how much you like being on time. That does sound frustrating. You must be, really upset right now. I would be the last person to help him with his car, right? I mean, I grew up in Manhattan. I didn't learn to drive until I was old. So, right. So I know what I can do, what I can't do. You also need to know what you are willing to do and not willing to do. And
Mm.
one of the things that often happens is for those of us who pride ourselves on being helpful, and that is not a bad thing, we often say yes to helping, or we offer helping opportunities when we really shouldn't or don't want to, for
Mm.
fear that it will harm our reputation. People will think we aren't a team player, when in fact it ends up eating away at our own ongoing confidence around saying yes and no to things, and it eats away at our own time to
Our
help ourselves.
energy. Yes. We only
Time
have
and
so
energy.
so much energy in any given
Yes.
day.
Yes. And I guess two other things to think about. Number one of the two is, and you definitely know this as a leadership communication coach and expert, that intention does not equal impact, right?
Exactly.
You and I know that in
Right.
talking
But
about
it came
feedback.
from my heart. I really,
Yes,
truly wanted to
right.
help them.
So
Which might be all well and true.
that's all well and true, and it is not enough. Your helpfulness is judged on its impact,
Right.
regardless of what your intention is. And that leads to the second part, which is as much as you may want to help, there are some people who do not need or want your help.
Mhm.
And if you are going to try to help somebody who has made it quite clear that they don't want it, in our book, we talk about what some of the possible costs to you, to your relationship, long term and short and long term may be. And so go in knowingly that if you're going to help someone who clearly doesn't want your help, that it could come at a cost.
It may be clear, and sometimes it's not clear that they don't want or don't need your help. And I'll just throw something out there for you,
Yeah.
Deb. I'd love your take on this. I created something 10 years ago. It's called the 6 Pillars of Mindful Communication.
Hmm.
And pillar number one is, understanding yourself, being yourself. Pillar number two is attuning yourself to them.
Yes.
Because sometimes you think they want your help, and perhaps they've utilized your help in the past. But in this particular case, they're shutting down and their energy might change. So that's why it's super important, especially now in the midst of so much of what's going on, to do your best to really tune in, to attune
Yes.
yourself to the person you're communicating with, and ask yourself the
Absolutely.
question, are they shifting? Is their energy changing?
Right. What am I noticing? Am I noticing that their face went blank and I've just been talking more than they're ready to hear? Am I noticing that their eyes are looking towards the nearest exit? All of those things, which is harder, right? In a virtual world, those things are harder to watch
Yes.
somebody run for the exits, but it's even more important that we notice that because communication is ever evolving, even as we think about use of technology and hybrid situations.
Can you
And
talk? Go
one
ahead.
thing I'll just say about that I had written something about this yesterday on LinkedIn is that some of my absolute favorite friends have been trained as coaches, and one of the benefits that people who are trained as coaches bring is that they know to ask, what kind of help are you looking for right now?
Hmm.
Right? They already know there isn't just one way to help. They know that there's a range of helpful approaches and less helpful approaches for this person in this situation. And so when I call a friend who happens to be a coach, they are 9 times out of 10 going to ask me, are you looking for some coaching? Do you want me just to listen to you? Do you want me to brainstorm with you? Do you want me to share my experience or give you advice? That's already 5 more strategies than most people have available to them.
We should put that on everybody's cell phone, right? I'm just
Yes,
going to stand
exactly.
here, be present with you, and listen. And then they can press the button, which is, what do you want me to do? Do
What do
you
you
want
want
me
me
to
to do?
do nothing? Do you just want me to
Yeah.
stand by your side? Or are you seeking some type of advice? That's
That's
great.
right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's wonderful. Okay. Talk a little bit about solution adversion.
Yes. Solution aversion. So the idea behind solution aversion is when we are facing a challenge or dilemma or opportunity, and we start to get that sense in our gut that the way of solving it is harder, trickier, longer, more complicated than we want, we minimize the problem. So,
Mm.
case in point, right? Case in point would be everybody who takes a look at maybe their clothes fitting a little bit differently 2 years into a pandemic, and they think to themselves, wow, I should probably have some more salads and hit the gym a little more frequently. And then they think to themselves, but I kind of like having dessert every night and I like sleeping in, which would be my gym time. You know what? I think I'm probably healthy enough. I'm good, right? That's solution aversion, which is you start to minimize the impact of the problem. And I'm not saying anybody has a problem, but you impact how big the problem is when you realize you actually don't want to engage in
Would
the
you say
solution.
that's because you're listening and you're realizing that the solution might need much more time, energy, and effort
All those
than you
things.
ever anticipated? And we are stretched to the max now.
For sure, for sure. Which is why I think help strategy number 30, I'm not sure I have it right, but I think I have it right, is promote the pause. And this is the idea of choosing to stop or to not do something, right?
Mhm.
So we are overwhelmed, overburdened, high on a lot of obligations and low on reserves and resilience right now. And I was writing this chapter, my daughter and I were writing this chapter just at the time that Simone Biles decided not to compete in many of her events at the
She
last Olympics.
paused.
She paused for her own mental and physical well-being. And hopefully, I know some people had criticism. I want to criticize the critics, but I hope most of us said, wow, what a brave thing to do, to recognize that you could cause yourself more harm than good by not stopping. And so deciding, hold on, let me just stop. Let me pause. Let me reflect. Let me decide to not do something. Or if you're a helper, let me help somebody think about what I could invite them to stop doing because it's actually getting in the way, is a huge way of helping. But we're so driven by, we have a bias towards action and so driven by forward movement that thinking about stopping or not doing something is a help strategy we don't often consider.
Now, in addition to my communication work, I'm also a mindfulness teacher, right? So,
I thought you were going to
think,
say you're an Olympic gymnast. I got really
oh, well,
excited, but
next
I'll take
life.
mindfulness.
But honest to goodness, we talk about pausing every hour. If you
Yeah.
only have 30 seconds, we're talking about 3 deep breaths and just centering yourself, right? You bet. 30 seconds every hour, or standing up from your desk. I think so many of us know that sitting, right, is the new smoking.
Yeah.
And if you have 60 seconds, you might want to roll your shoulders and just ask yourself, how am I feeling? Does my body feel constricted or does
Mm-hmm.
it feel expanded? And what do I need to do to try to make it feel a bit more expanded as opposed to constricted? And am I going to take just a sec here and not beat myself up because it feels constricted? Because guess what? The
Absolutely.
majority of the world, so much of the world is feeling extra, super constricted right now.
And what you've just said is so embedded with multiple help strategies from the book, right? So
Yes.
taking a moment to empathize, pointing out somebody's strengths, acknowledging what is working, helping somebody highlight their blind spots, right? You don't even see what you don't see in terms of your own overwhelm or anxiety. Everything you just described is beautifully embedded with what the book talks about. And we don't think about them because they're micro but have macro impact.
Thank you. And everything you just described, I believe, has to do with helping people, right? With helping
Mhm.
others. How about, Deb, helping yourself? I believe you also had a chapter on appreciation,
Yes.
the importance of obviously not only appreciating the people around you, but also appreciating all of who you are,
Yeah.
what you, that's really self help, isn't it?
Yes, it is self-help and other help because I know that if I am feeling critical of myself, it is highly likely that I will be more critical of others.
Mm,
And so when I take time to reflect on how I'm feeling, reflect on what I'm doing, reflect on who I'm being, probably most of all, who am I being and how am I showing up for myself in this moment? It allows me to take that pause, to reflect, to make some shifts, and then I am more generous and patient with others as well. So
love
it's
that.
self-help and other help as well.
hmm Who am I being and am I being myself? Because I
Yes.
believe at the end of the day, if there's one thing that everybody wants, it's the ability to just be themselves.
Yes.
Okay, asking
Yes.
for help, being clear. I mean, clarity is the word that I use all the time,
Mhm.
but being clear, Deb, and being specific in
Yeah.
terms of what you need.
Yeah. And I think probably one of the simplest strategies you can use is to let folks know exactly what you do not want right now. Right.
Mm.
So if I were calling you as my coach, or let's not say coach because you would know what to do, but let's say I were calling you as my colleague or friend, and I said, I just had a huge challenge with a proposal that I sent in, and I'm really feeling overwhelmed. And Donna, I know you can help in so many ways. What I definitely do not need right now is to reverse engineer what I did wrong. Like, I'll figure that out on my own later. Right now, I just need you to listen while I get it all off my chest. Could you do that for me?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so, yes, I know that you certainly had good listening behaviors. So, being clear about, and that means you have to check in with yourself first. Here's what I don't want right now. And I have a sense of what could be helpful. Can you do that right now? Would you be willing to do that for me right now?
I'm hearing this all over the workplace, and I'm hearing this at home too.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes.
That's what I tell people. You're learning these effective communication skills and these leadership communication skills for professional purposes. But I think people realize pretty quickly, boy, I can utilize these same skills absolutely at home as
And I
well.
think the one thing I can say in conclusion is in the last 2 years, we've learned that there is no firewall between work and home.
Now,
Yeah.
ain't that the truth? Okay. I loved this line in the book, Deb, as we get near to the end here. I can accept help and fully own my success.
Yes.
First of all, I want to preface this with the fact that companies really have been doing so many wonderful things, especially over the past couple of years now, in terms of doing their best to really attune to their people and figure out who they are, what they need, and how they can help. But I always remind people I'm coaching, at the end of the day, your success is
Yes.
your responsibility.
So many of us believe that if I got assistance along the way, I'm sharing the success. Now, I'm a big fan of giving people credit for their help along the way, but we don't need to be successful without help. We don't need to be successful despite help. We are helpful. We are successful because of help. And I fully own my successes. And I fully own that I asked for the help that I needed. I turned down the help that I didn't. And all of that contributed to me being who I want to be personally and professionally.
And your opportunity to learn all these skills is in the book. Go to Help 31 Ways to Offer, Ask for, and Accept Help from Deborah Grayson Riegel. Deborah, I cannot thank you enough for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. If you'd like this interview, please connect with us on social media, on LinkedIn, and absolutely like us on our YouTube channel, and connect with us anytime, especially for our 6-week leadership communication program through iVoiceCommunication.com. Until next time, I'm Donna Rustigian Mac. Thank you very much again, Deb, and
Thank
until
you.
next time.